We do have Luca from Ryvo in the waiting room. Ryvo, speaking of Futardio, Ryvo is the next launch, which I believe has actually gone live on Futardio today. So we'll definitely check that out. But they're doing the Open Agentic Payment Network, and it got an honorable mention from Coliseum, which is obviously, it's a great shout to have. So let's talk about it. The one thing that I saw going into this is, Open Agentic Payment Network is their one-liner. And that kind of gets convoluted. I feel like there's so many people iterating on X402 and agentic payment. It's like you really have to do something unique or have an edge to be the dominant winner. And of course, it's still so early. Even like it's hard to track from a metric standpoint. So I think that's what the conversation today is going to be largely about. Is like what specifically is Ryvo? What's the market you're operating in? And then like how do you become the winner of such an early emerging market? Because it is something like it is a fascinating conversation. So without further ado, guys, I'm going to bring out Luca. I want to thank our sponsor MetaDAO. Remember, if you're looking to raise money, MetaDAO is the best place to do it. And also, as a holder, you get ownership and upside in these companies. $45 million has been raised to date. So shout out to MetaDAO. With that, the Futardio platform is their democratized launching platform, which Ryvo is live on now, as far as I'm aware. So, Luca, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yes, we're excited to talk. As far as I'm aware, you guys are live on Futardio?
Yes, the race is live as of 2 hours.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be excited to get into it and see if this is something that's worth investing in. And of course, we have the man, the myth himself on to talk through it. Luca, can you start us off there with a background on yourself so that people can get to know you, so I can get to know you? Who's Luca, and why is he building Ryvo?
Sure. So I've been in crypto since high school, back from 2015, and I've been kind of investing in and off in Bitcoin and then in Ethereum and in different narratives. And I'm a technical person, so ever since from high school, I was building, just WordPress websites, right, landing pages, stuff like that. And after the AI boom from ChatGPT in 2023, I got into development in crypto specifically. So I joined Web3 as a developer, and since then I've been, developing in crypto. So my first company that I worked at was ZK Markets, which was the largest NFT marketplace on ZK Sync. We worked together with the foundation to bring, smart contract accounts, stuff like that. That was fairly new back then. We did like session keys. We did, batch payments, or batch purchasing of NFTs, sending. We even created like a guarding setup where you could recover your account. So like pretty interesting stuff. But even till this day, smart accounts didn't really pick up the steam, right? Everyone's still kind of stuck on EOAs. And then after that, I won multiple hackathons. One of them was Luxo's Built Up 2. I got first place. And that was my first real startup, which was Defolio, which was a portfolio management website. Worked on that for 2 years. And due to the objectives that kind of environment of how the blockchain Luxo kind of evolved, which was there was a hack with their staking platform, and then just price went down. And so the ecosystem kind of died down. And then on and off, I've been kind of freelancing, right, building different stuff. And I I learned about Solana, like really got into it in the beginning of this year. And I learned about Super Team Georgia. And this is
Are you from Georgia?
Yes, I'm from Georgia. Yeah.
Georgia seems, obviously, we talked with the Rip Cars team not long ago. Georgia just seems like it's an incredible emerging market right now.
Yeah, we have Rip Cars. We also have Crowdbrain. They were the grand champion of the Coliseum Frontier, right?
Wow.
And then we also have Tab Markets. They're also Super Team Georgia members. They got accepted into Monkey Foundry. So, and then we have Loyal. One of their team members are Super Team Georgia members. So it's picking up steam. Definitely, we have a lot of interest in founders and projects.
I don't know. At some point, I saw like a cool video of like some of the Georgian culture on Instagram. It was a sick video, and I'm like, I want to travel to Georgia based on like the conversations I've had with the Georgian people and like these videos I'm seeing. It looks pretty awesome, incredible to be honest. So maybe that's on my bucket list for a trip I got to take.
There you go. Yeah, you're welcome. Like we'll be happy to host, as a super team.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I learned about Super Team Georgia, and I got accepted as a member. I received funding for Ryvo Network. Initially, it was called Aegon Protocol. It was an idea born out of the Pump Fun Hackathon, And essentially, as a developer, I learned about X402, and it instantly clicked for me. Well, because I personally deal with subscriptions, right? Like for example, I use this example all the time. I purchase RPC subscriptions, which cost, let's say, on Helios $50, but I only consume $20 worth, right? So I'm losing $30 per month. And so what X42 allows me to do is it allows me to purchase APIs on demand when I need them, and I don't need to, put up money up front, right? I don't need to be locked into a subscription or into a vendor, right? I can on demand buy anything I want, any type of API, and so that's what kind of convinced me of X402. But then I quickly realized that in order to process same amount of API calls with X402, I would actually be paying 100 times more in transaction fees. And so I realized that X42 needs some kind of a scaling solution. To simply put it, you can't put every single API call on chain, because what X42 is essentially it's a simple stablecoin transfer, right? You're requesting a resource, you're paying in stablecoins, and so you have to pay the transaction fee. And the environment that we're going to have in the future and even today is that agents will be making, and they're making thousands of tool API calls, MCP calls, right? And so you can have all of that put on chain. It's just not possible. Not only the transaction fee, but also the latency. And then the third reason, which is the most obvious, is that there's no blockchain that can process billions of transactions per second. Right? Even as fast as Solana is, as cheap as it is, I don't think it's possible and feasible to, again, potentially process billions of these on-chain transfers, right? And so that's the main difference between agentic payments, so to speak, and just payments, right? Just payments are, let's say, payroll, right? You're buying something off of Amazon, you're buying something off of eBay, right? You're making high value, low frequency payments, but machines will make low value, high frequency payments. And so you need that high frequency and you need to process that. And blockchains are not really good for it. And so that's what Ryvo was trying to solve.
Okay, so blockchains, and see, this is different than what I've heard, right? I've heard X402 and blockchains are great for micropayments and like agentic transactions. You're saying that's actually not really the case. Maybe I'm misinformed.
It's great for micropayments. And if we're talking about like few micropayments, right? The whole thesis is that micropayments are by nature cheaper than transaction fees, right? Like you're going to be paying more in transaction fees than the value that you're transferring. And so it simply does not make sense
Right.
to pay, right, 10, 100 times more in transaction fees when the underlying thing that you're buying is worth way less.
Give me an idea
And
of that value. Is it like 1 cent transactions that are like it just doesn't economically make sense, or like at what point does it start making sense?
yeah, so let's take Solana, right? Because Ryvo's on Solana and it's exclusive on Solana. So on Solana, the average X42, let's say, transaction costs 0.3 zeros and an 8. So let's round it up. Let's say 0.001 cent, right? Now, anything below that does not make sense. An example of that is if your agent wants to look up a wallet address and get all of the balances, that lookup costs roughly 10 times less. And so, right, it doesn't make sense, right? You can get 10 lookups for one transaction fee.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, RPCs are like a great example because they're really cheap. But then also you can have a search API that costs, right, 1/10 of a cent, and then you're gonna pay the same amount in transaction fees. So essentially, right, you're spending more money and then especially if your agent makes thousands of those calls a day, it adds up, right? It stacks up.
And so like that's really the target then. I wanted to gear towards like this kind of came out of necessity for you. You saw this as an issue. You're like, okay, someone's got to step in and make a solution for it. Who is the target audience then with this? It's clearly agents, but like what are these agents purchasing? Maybe just give me more insight on the target demographic here.
Yeah, this is an interesting question because the whole market, the whole X42 agentic commerce is still fairly new. Now the topic, what people are discussing is mostly like e-commerce, right? Like you have an agent, the agent goes and buys like something off of Amazon, right? Does shopping. But as for what we're targeting, what I'm thinking is the target market, first straightforward is trading. if you want to have some type of an AI agent that does trading on chain, the agent needs to get access to data, right? It needs to get access to the latest on-chain and off-chain data. So best place to swap, right? Best place to get information from, best, I guess, trades, right? You also need access to off-chain data. So on X, for example, you may need to like pull some data on X, what's going on timeline, what's the news, whatever, and then AI can just analyze all that data and give you some kind of a summary, right? Trading is like one of those examples where high frequency makes sense, right? Because you need data all the time. There's token launches all the time, right? And you need to analyze a lot of wallets. That's the first one. But then you can expand it to any type of API. So, for example, even if your agent does lookups, like needs search, if you give your agent a task to search something, you can have an API that you pay, fractions of a cent, and then you get the search results. And you're not going to be making one search a day, right? You're going to make hundreds and potentially thousands of searches a day. And so the market is fairly new, and we still have to kind of see what the real use cases are. And I think one of the reasons we haven't seen a lot of experimentation is because of the cost. If we have some kind of a solution, which is Ryvo in this case, that enables these APIs to be bought at scale, we can have a lot more experimentation done with agents and developers. And then we can actually find use cases.
No, okay, this is making a ton of sense. So it's really hard to even to have this conversation because it's so early in the cycle of like where we're headed to. So maybe I even walk it back and we talk about that a little bit. Like, what is the direction we're headed in generally in terms of agentic payments, X402? Because again, like we've seen volumes, transactions are very low relative to global payments or whatever you want to call it. So they're relatively low in general. So what is the direction? How big does this get? I guess we think of a total addressable market here. How big does this get? Where are we in 5 years from now, a year from now, even in terms of agentic payments and some of the conversation we're having here?
I mean, there are people, I think, from Circle, from Arc, from Tempo, Stripe, like all these big companies. They're thinking by 2030 the agentic commerce, agentic payments market will be in trillions, and majority of transactions on the internet will be done by agents, which makes sense, I think. But it's a bit of a bold statement, right? Like they're making a bet on AI and they're saying it's going to be AI transacting and everything. For me, the way I look at it is that currently the way the API economy works on the internet is through subscriptions, and X42 has a chance to kind of change that and remove the subscription economy, I guess, and transform it into a truly pay-per-call economy. And so what Ryvo does is the way I look at it is that we bring on-demand payments, purchasing of APIs, and then we bring the API economy that currently exists on the internet on chain.
Got you.
And so you can expand that logic to any type of API, essentially.
Pay per call. I think that's what I want to hang my hat on a little bit here because I think that's pretty much the crux of it. You have to now find a solution to make this economically viable, right? And so I think to kind of recap a little bit, we came in here, we said, look, at some point it becomes non-economically viable to buy APIs, to do all these different things. We want to build a solution out to make it economically viable because we believe the direction we're headed is pay per call. So like now that we have kind of the history and lore here, how can you actually go and do it, make it economically viable and bring this pay per call reality to life?
Great question. So what Ryvo is essentially, I think we can get into a bit technical details. So the first step is we have two layers of compression. The first one is payment channels. This is an old technology. There's nothing new. It's actually what Lightning Network is built on. So you can think of Ryvo as a Lightning Network implementation on Solana, built specifically around X42 agents and APIs. So the way it works is that you have a payment channel, which is just a relationship between an agent and a provider, and the agent locks up capital on chain, and then you make tons of as many off-chain payments as you like, right? And those off-chain payments or obligations are backed by on-chain liquidity. But there's an issue with it, which is that you're now locking up your liquidity with one provider. And so if you want to go to another one, you really can't, right? You have to rescue your liquidity, you have to settle all those obligations, and then you have to go to the next provider. And so what Ryvo does is it kind of solves that problem as well. And we use that through the hub model, where there's two components. One is the on-chain program that does the actual payment channel implementation and batching of micropayments, and then you have the next layer, which is the payment service provider, and so that's Ryvo. Instead of locking liquidity with many providers, you lock it with Ryvo only, and then we act as a gateway to every provider that you might need. And so now we're kind of routing liquidity whatever it needs to go. Now, what's interesting about this is that we are still non-custodial, so we don't really control the funds. You get to decide who you pay, and we simply sign on our end and route the liquidity, and it's all atomic, meaning that we get paid, but then we pay the provider, right? It's not that we get paid and then we might decide not to pay the provider. It all happens in one transaction. And then we have the second layer of batching. So we batch micropayments, but then we also batch settlements of many channels at once. And we do this by the use of RKM network, which is a decentralized compute network built on Solana. And so essentially what we do is we feed all these pending obligations between many parties, and all of those get cleared in a single transaction. And to give an idea, with our benchmarks, we reached a roughly 100x compression. So we can we can settle 100 relationships in one transaction, as opposed to.
And that's what gets your costs down to be more manageable, correct?
Yes.
And that's okay. So you say you get 100 times savings. Basically, it's because you're batching. Yeah. Am I understanding?
So, I think if you can, maybe I can share my screen.
Yeah, definitely share your screen if you'd like. At the bottom there, you can do so.
Yep.
Or I can scroll through this if it's on the website.
I think our pitch deck. I have this on our pitch deck explained pretty well.
Got you popped up here.
Yeah. Do you see it?
Yep.
Cool. So this is this analysis done on real X42 data. So if agents were to use Ryvo network over the past, it's now 10 months, but like this is done on the 7-month data. The transaction cost that agents paid was about $6,000. With Ryvo, it would have been about $6. So which is 991 times cheaper. Now,
wow.
This only grows with scale, right? So as you make more payments, right, within the same amount of time, you essentially get more compression compared to paying transaction for every single API call. So this is the I guess scale that we're talking about. It's not like, it's like $6,000 and then $2,000. It's literally,
nearly 1,000x.
Exactly, and it grows with scale. So yeah, it kind of scales.
Okay, so this makes sense. And for like the non-technical people, this is kind of what we want to, I think, stick on for a little bit. So my question now becomes, okay, you pop out a screen. It's clearly over time with scale, generally much more lucrative for agents to use this rather than something else. What's your go-to-market with this now? How do you go and find the people that are power users of agents or the agents that are doing all these transactions and pop the screen up to them and say, look, stop doing it your way. I got savings for you. Now do it our way. You're selling a good product, right? If you're selling a real good product that actually can deliver savings like this, everyone's going to want to use it. How do you get in front of those people?
Exactly. That's a good question. It's a bit tricky. You have to market to agents. There's really no way to market to agents. Perhaps you can do, one way is SEO, right? You can go SEO when an agent looks up, I want to get, let's say, for example, I had this happen to me before. I would ask my agent, can you research this specific transaction? And it would go and look up some tools that it can use to make RPC calls. You can plug into that, and an agent can say, okay, well, I can use this Ryvo thing, and then it can investigate and onboard itself. That's one of the ways. And the second way is to actually market directly to developers. So this is done through content, which I plan to do. This is on X and on also other platforms. To actually, because you have developers, the target is not only agents. This is the way I see it. It's also developers, because I personally use this product myself. The gateway is live already, which was built during the Coliseum hackathon. And when I'm doing my testing on DevNet, I'm actually using my own gateway, and my agent doesn't have to go to like free RPC links or whatever, right? It actually uses the
So
gateway.
this is ready to go.
Yeah, currently yes, but it's on DevNet only. So I'm actually kind of paying myself, really. But I'm talking in terms of like UX, right? Like it's not only agents, also developers and just like people needing those tools. So the go to market is a bit tricky because again, the market's pretty small, and you have to like kind of find like a specific example. And I did have a lot of providers, a few providers reach out after Coliseum, who wanted to integrate the payment stack into their APIs, and then B, I had one of the agentic trading platforms reach out, and they were pretty interested in kind of allowing their own customers and agents to use the gateway to buy those RPC calls to do agentic trading. So I think it's mostly just the first step is providing the supply side, right? Like having APIs that people can buy. And then I think part of it is agents discovering it themselves. And then part of it is just content, right? Just traditional marketing.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like you're very much sort of building for a future. We know, I think the general crypto investor, less or so with MetaDAO and Futardio, but they're generally pretty short-sighted. And I think you're trying to really get ahead of this market, which I applaud you for. But we know sometimes these things take years, lots of time to really manifest and manufacture into a profitable business. Like you mentioned, the volumes are relatively low right now. What's your message to those holders or the people that maybe see your vision, but it's like, man, this is maybe a year or two out. What's your general thinking on that as well?
I think it's one of the biggest opportunities for me personally, because we're talking about building a new payment primitive that will be used by basically everyone, because everyone will have agents. I mean, agents, AI is not going away. It's becoming more efficient.
Right.
It's going to be part of our lives even more. And so fundamentally, those agents need data, right? They need services. They need microservices. And so I think fundamentally the thesis makes sense, and you just have to like I guess understand the vision. Because otherwise, if you think that this is, let's say, for example, like I don't know, that there's platforms who are like maybe short-term more, like Launchpad, for example. If you're launching on the Launchpad, right, there's a lot of competition there, right? The market's already there, it exists. But this is something new, and I think it has a lot of potential. And again, we have Circle, we have Arc, we have we have Tempo, we have Stripe, like all these big companies, Visa, Mastercard,
Big
right?
players
Even Solana
validating it.
has exactly right. Like everyone's working towards this goal, and so I think there's a unique opportunity here to build something unique and
Okay.
capture the market.
I appreciate that answer. I think furthermore, I want to ask, like, what's your business model on top of this? Again, like you compress margins from, I think you showed on the screen, what was it, $6,000 to what was 60 or so, six, right? $6,000 to six. So like, where do your margins come into this? How do you guys make money? What's your business model?
This is actually a great question. Now it's a bit tricky. So since we're kind of betting big, we have to bet big, and so this is the next part of the pitch, which is that on the same data, if agents transacted with Ryvo, and one of the ideas is that you transact with stable coins that earn yield. And so essentially the idea is that while you have stable coins locked in the protocol and you're making off-chain payments, the money in the protocol works for you and generates yield. And so on the same data, based on the volume, the agents would have generated additional $13,000 in revenue, right? And so the payment network, eh, we not only reduce the transaction fees, but we introduce yield, which then actually increases the overall value of the network. Now, the tricky thing about this is that you need to first be like scale pretty big for this to make sense. Because if you offer 4 or 5% APY, we need to take a fee from that, and then the rest goes to the customers and the providers. And then the second part of that is that it introduces risk, and so it needs to be optional, right? Like not everyone, maybe another drift thing,
Right.
happens. So
Lots of
so that's
lots of
another
risk.
thing. Yeah, and then this is long term. Let's say, and I'm pretty kind of interested in this because it kind of resembles banks, right? Like you deposit money into a bank, and they earn money on your money. So this is kind of
Right.
the same concept. And then the second one is within our gateway, we can perhaps act as an operator ourselves and resell, for example, allow agents to buy inference, right, per call. And we can add a margin similar to Open Router, which I think they have 5% margins. So that's another source of revenue, essentially reselling, upselling different services.
Yeah, I think you stated it pretty perfectly. As you were talking about this, I was literally thinking it's a bank. I mean, like, yeah, banks are taking money, they're earning more money and paying you, a lot less yield than they're making, and that's just like it instantly clicked in my mind, and so I'm glad you used that example. Talk to me a little bit about the inference market. We see inference markets popping up quite a bit. I think Crypto Jones even made a comment. Have you considered a partnership with some of the discount inference platforms like UsePod or Surplex? And we're seeing people, of course, take their inference and resell it. And I think we are seeing a lot of agents, in some cases, default to these models that are not so expensive. And so we are seeing pay per call, or we could see an opportunity for pay per call for inference. How are you guys thinking about the inference market? I guess is my long-winded question.
Yeah, like if you were to tell me inference makes sense for Ryvo a couple of months back, it didn't, because I would say like it doesn't, because like tokens were expensive, but now we have models like DeepSeek V4, and I'm seeing on X it costs like pennies, right? And so now, as the cost of tokens go down, we need some kind of scaling, because if you purchase inference and the tokens itself cost you again less than the transaction fee, you need a scaling solution. And so I think for the past month I've been thinking about the fact that, well, actually inference might also need the scaling solution. And so the agents themselves, the way it would work is you give an agent a single stablecoin balance, a single wallet with, of course, some guardrails, permissions, etc. And the agent can go and buy any type of model, any type of inference it needs, any type of API, any type of search, right? On demand per call without any lockouts with a provider or a platform. Currently, if you like deposit into Open Router, that money's there, right? It's done. You can't really withdraw it. You really don't have any freedom.
Hmm.
Even though they have a lot of models, maybe there's something they don't have that you want. As for Surplus and UsePod, I haven't looked into it, to be honest, but I'll definitely check it out and see about that. Which I think,
Same idea.
yeah, okay, gotcha. But you said it's about reselling unused inference, or
Yeah, so them specifically, yeah, these people will either have inference. It doesn't really matter how they get it. For example, Venice is how it started. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Venice and
yeah,
VVV. And their model is you stake VVV, you get Diem, and that gives you $1 per day of inference per token you hold, right? And so these people have 100, 200, call it $1,000 of inference per day, and they're only using a fraction of that. So what they're doing is taking that inference that they're earning and they're reselling it on these marketplaces. Again, Venice is one example. People can do this with however they get their hands on inference, right? That's beyond the
mhm.
point. And then they're reselling that for a discount on these platforms, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely does. But the same logic applies, right? Like if you have a model that's fairly cheap, and you're gonna pay per call, and we're talking about like paying with stablecoins, and no vendor lockups, no API keys, no. This is another part as well. Like agents, like you're making agents more efficient, right? Because agents spend less tokens because they don't have to sign up, they don't have to link a card, they don't have to generate APIs or manage API keys, and so you just have a wallet, a balance, and you just buy whatever you need, right, including inference.
Yeah. Luca, I think this makes a lot of sense to me. I think it's a long-term vision. I think, like, directionally, you're right. It's very validating. There's a lot of big players building in this direction. And so I am excited to see this future kind of come to life. Maybe as we start wrapping this conversation, you talk me through a bit of that vision and just the roadmap that you guys have, where you see this heading. If you do get that funding, if you guys manage to get this raise closed out and hit your goal, what kind of comes next from that point?
Yeah, so I have, even though if the race doesn't go well, or if it does, doesn't really matter. The product goes on mainnet this month in August, and
Nice.
the first product will be the RPC aggregator, which is, I think we'll try to see if we can find PMF with it, if there's any trading tools and trading bots, trading agents that might need it. That's the first thing. The next step is, of course, adding inference to it, which is for the next month, which is September. And then after that, I think it's a period for Coliseum hackathon. So we'll of course be participating again because we got honorable mention.
Nice.
And of course, like Unruggable, for example, participated 4 times. So like you gotta keep building, right? It's not like a one-off hackathon. It's actually a startup competition. So that's also on the roadmap. And then the rest is just simply finding providers that are willing to kind of monetize their APIs to agents, and then finding PMF on the agent side, see what kind of tools agents want and need.
Yeah, fascinating conversation. I think again, if you show a product that just excuse me, that gives you a ton of savings, it almost seems like a no-brainer not to use it. And we talk about this over and over and over, time and time again on the show. That I think at some point, agents are obviously just going to choose whatever's the most economically viable option. And so there doesn't really need to be necessarily a salesperson. I'm not advising against going and evangelizing and selling it, but I think at some point we get to a point where agents are naturally going to find the best economic solutions. And if that is Ryvo, like you're just going to get those flows by nature. So I look forward to that future. I think what you're building is really, really cool, and I think you're a very well-spoken founder. So best of luck to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Cheers.
we'll stay in contact, and talk soon.
Cool. See you.
All right, peace. Yeah, very, very cool stuff there. It's such an early, it's such a like a vision based thing. You have to kind of get behind this thesis and be able to rock out with it for the long term because again, like there are very little volumes actually happening right now. These are very much so people building for the future. The people that build for the future and position according to, where they think it's going to go are going to do very well, of course, if that's the direction it takes. Yeah, I think he's got a cool product. I want to see this in practice, right? I want to see other people outside of himself using this and like showing those savings, right? Because it's one thing to see it, I think, on a pitch deck, of course, and it's another thing to see it actually in practice. And so I always like to see it, in practice. Are we actually seeing people getting those savings that were advertised? If that is the case, like, again, it seems like a good product. So, really cool conversation. I think just the agentic world is crazy to think about. So, really cool stuff, guys. I got a few things to talk about. Won't take too much of your time on this Friday, but that's 3 calls. Been a good interview day so far. Let's talk markets though. Crypto Jones, how we doing? I see you rocking it out with me today. I guess I should ask more on overhead and spend. Of course, guys, this is live. If you want to go check it out, right? The Ryvo network is live right now on the Futardio platform. I'll pull it up here for you guys. If you found the conversation interesting and you think this is an investable token, of course, do your own due diligence. I think we had a great conversation here. You can do it through the Futardio Launchpad. So go check this out. More information that we could have covered today is going to be on here. So again, how much they're raising, what the FDV is going to be, how much they're going to spend, like the allocation, right? It's all going to be right here. And it seems to be $8,000 a month, which is relatively low, of course. Very modest salary. Infrastructure is $1,500. So there's your answer, Crypto Jones. $1,500 for marketing, AI and dev tooling $1,000. So that gives you 14 months of runway, assuming that there are no votes raised to further spend outside this $8,000 budget. So pretty cool stuff. But yeah, interesting conversation. I think that was the biggest takeaway for me as well. Luca, he kept it pretty high level for us. We got a little bit technical during some points, but like I think he is a great, seemingly, of course, hard to tell so early on, but seemingly a great founder. He understands the market he's working in. I love to see products that come from out of necessity. Like I love to. Experimentations are cool, but when I have a founder that comes on and says, dude, this issue kept coming up where it doesn't make economic sense to pay per API call or whatever, and this is like an issue that I faced, I need to build a solution for it. You find time and time again, if you have a problem with something, there's a really good chance that there's a lot of other people having that exact same problem. So I love to see that in a founder. That's a founder trait, and a product trait I love to see is problem and solution. So I agree, Crypto Jones. I like Ryvo. Lucas sounds like the right guy for the vision. He does. He sounds like the right guy. If Ryvo succeeds, what does the agentic economy look like 3 years from now, and where does Ryvo fit into the ecosystem? That's the biggest hurdle for me. It's like I think we can all get on board with like this agentic economy. X402 was really hot a couple months back, and it kind of aged into nothing. We haven't really seen those volumes meaningfully pick up. Like it hasn't been something yet. Does not mean it's not going to be. But yeah, I think the biggest hurdle here is you're at the will of the market. You can build the products, you can have great tooling, you can be the best for years and years and years and years, but until the market comes around to it in terms of like volume and actual usage, it means nothing, right? So it is a big like 6, 12, 1 year plus out from now conversation. And that's the biggest drawback I think I would face is the timing. Um, Holders are very impatient, just generally in crypto on Solana. And again, I said less so for MetaDAO. We see the holders actually being much more resilient on MetaDAO and Futardio. Um, but yeah, to be beholden to the market is a dangerous thing, and I think this is a longer term vision. And not that you should, I think you should bet on long term visions. I wish the collective of crypto would bet on long term visions more than they do, but we unfortunately don't see a lot of that right now. So I don't know. You know, Ahmed, I'll answer this question for you in the best I can. What does the agentic economy look like 3 years from now, and where does Ryvo fit into this ecosystem? I can't speak for the Ryvo team, but I can say in 3 years from now, roughly 2030. I'll even extend it maybe. Roughly 2030. We're halfway through this year, a little over halfway through this year, right? So extend this to 2030. Where do we go? And I mean, Luca kind of made the point for that on the stream. Like everyone's basically foreseeing and projecting that 2030. By that time, we'll have pretty fully functioning agentic economies where everything you do is happening with an agent, right? Your shopping, your transactions, your API calls, your whatever it might be, an agent's really taking over a lot of that workload, a lot of that busy work, a lot of this kind of stuff. So I think I foresee that future too. We're accelerating so fast with AI. Yeah, I mean, I just think generally AI agents take over all those tasks, and we see a lot of those micropayments, microtransactions. But again, that's 3 years out. Like that's 3 years out. I don't see it. I don't see this being a thing by the end of the year in a big way. I think that's a little bit jumping the gun. If someone has been actively supporting Ryvo by creating educational content and engaging with the community, how could they potentially become an official contributor or ambassador? Yeah, great questions. I would divert you to Luca on that. I'm not a part of the team, or I do not know. So go ahead. I'm sure Luca, he's in the waiting room, so he can hear all this right now. Go ahead and shoot him a DM, and I'm sure he'll check that at some point. Would have been good to get more into what the upside holders can expect. Yeah, unfortunately, we have to keep it on time because I got a few more things to cover. But check it out, guys. Do some more